So this is Revelation chapter 17, the scripture for the 23rd of November. In chapters 17 and 18, we're introduced fully and completely to Babylon, and there's a judgment rendered against Babylon the Great, the evil version of the new heaven and the new earth. We see the new heaven and the new earth described at the end of Revelation in chapters 21 and 22. In between these chapters, chapters 17 and 18 about Babylon and chapters 21 and 22 about the new heaven and the new earth, we've got chapters 19 and 20, which are about the victory of Jesus Christ over every form of evil, including death itself. But in this chapter, we're introduced to Babylon. And Babylon, in this situation, is Rome. In many ways, mostly identical with Rome, although there's some other pieces of it that we'll touch base on here in a little bit. But when John uses the idea of Babylon in his context, he was meaning the great power of the day, that is Rome. So the angel calls Babylon the great whore, and I think it's worth spending a little bit of time talking about this. To the Hebrew mind, idolatry and sexual sin, sexual unfaithfulness, were identical, or at least related. Frequently, throughout the prophets, God identifies Israel, describes Israel as an unfaithful spouse, in that Israel worships and serves other gods, prostituting herself out to other people who will take care of her. You can see some of this language and some of the idea behind it in Hosea, chapters 1 through 3. There's other, perhaps more graphic ways of describing this elsewhere in the Old Testament, which you can find. But Hosea is a great intro point to this idea of idolatry and unfaithfulness really being one and the same. Now, while the angel makes reference to sexual sin here, like fornication, the angel is likely referring specifically to idolatry. And this idolatry isn't just, bowing down before a graven image, as it were. The angel has a much more comprehensive, much more robust understanding of idolatry in mind. Instead, the angel may refer, for example, to valuing commerce and profit over and against human lives. That's a form of idolatry, right? Or extracting capital from slave labor. That's another form of idolatry, which we see all too frequently in our modern context. And although much of this, like I said, refers to Rome in John's context, we in America are also guilty of using our privilege and our example in sort of the global space to push out ideas about money, about sex, about power that lead to destruction and to idolatry to other nations. We are guilty of exporting so much of our manufacturing so that we can pay a lower cost for our phones, for our computing devices, for the things that make our lives possible. Because if they were manufactured here in America, we'd have to pay more. Now, in all its forms, sin and idolatry damages the witnesses to Jesus Christ. Another word for the witnesses to Jesus Christ are Christians, right? Whether you just dabble in the worship of another god or whether you've bought all into the worship of another god, you are harming Christians. You are harming those who follow Jesus Christ. Remember, to worship something is to value it more than other things or other people or other ideas. So when we align ourselves with the great whore, Babylon, what that means is we are worshiping and serving someone else other than Jesus Christ. What it means is that we're always looking to the past or to the future for satisfaction. Unlike Jesus Christ, who, as it says earlier in Revelation, is and was and is to come. The beast was, is not, and is to come. Any pleasure or satisfaction from idolatry is ephemeral. It either lives in the past or in the future. Any satisfaction from idolatry doesn't stay in the present. It escapes. It flies away. Now, there's a lot of language in this chapter about heads and horns, and this all points to ideas around the great whore being Rome, or, in fact, any other city with global power and influence. And like any other great city, while Rome may align itself with the beast to get ahead, the beast, remember, that's the evil one, will eventually turn on the great whore, and the evil she surrendered to will consume her. Let that not be our end, friends. I wonder, what idolatry and sin do you need to remove from your life? That's all for Revelation chapter 17. Tomorrow, the 24th, we'll look at Revelation chapter 18. May God bless you in your reading of Scripture.